And we're back right here on the Quadcast, and we have Nick Harris right to my left. We got Jordan Fash right here to my diagonal, and we got Eddie Pearson right here in front of me. And we are back, and we're talking about the in-depth review of Godzilla. And I'm going to throw it to my man Jordan right diagonal from me. Jordan,
all right.
Just give us like a little bit of your, just a quick overview of like what you thought of the film, and then we'll just keep it going.
Alrighty. I enjoyed Godzilla. I liked it. I really didn't have a whole lot to go off of. I mean, I'm not like a giant Godzilla fan.
Oh, yes.
I don't have, the toys or anything like that.
Don't be looking at me, Jordan.
But yeah, I mean, it delivered what I was hoping it would deliver, which was Godzilla destroying and fighting stuff, and I was entertained. I was captivated.
Very good.
So,
Nick, what about your initial thoughts?
I wouldn't go back and erase having seen this in a time machine or anything, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I'll get more into some of those reasons, but just for kind of a sum up, I would probably put this, at a 5 out of 10 for me.
ooh,
Eddie, what about you?
50%.
Man, 5
That was
out of
fighting
10.
words.
Yikes.
This is the first Godzilla movie I've ever seen. So, like Jordan said, don't have a lot to base it off of, but I liked it as a movie. So, it was.
Well,
like
Eddie,
you
you've
said,
been
destruction, and
Yeah, I'd
of
agree
course,
with that.
It reminds me of another one of my favorite vintage games, Rampage. So,
Well, as me being the kaiju mastermind / Godzilla ultra fan, yes, I love the movie. There were some key things in there, but I wish they would have done some things different. I mean, I have my complaints, but overall, I still loved it. And I'll get into talking about my complaints, which might surprise a bunch of people or not. But
I'm very curious. To
yes,
hear
I
these.
know. But Nick, since you're so adamant on discussing yours, how about we just go get the hard stuff away? So
Was I really pressing it that hard?
just a little bit. When you said 5 out of 10, I'm like, oh, you're asking.
Well, my biggest
punches.
problem with the movie is just that Godzilla is not in it. This feels like Iron Man 3 for me, where in that film, at the 45-minute mark, I looked at my watch and said, where is the main character of this movie?
Exactly.
And I did the same thing in this, where not quite as bad as that movie, but at the same time, at the end of the movie, I stopped and said, how much time was Godzilla actually on screen?
10 minutes.
And we probably should here, before we get too far into this, say that we're going to do some spoilers
Yeah,
here. So
should
if
we?
you
Yes.
don't want the
Probably.
movie spoiled,
Probably.
you probably should turn off now, and then you can
Come
find
back
it,
in
you
20
can find
minutes.
us again later on either YouTube under NickGuyHarris, all one word, or it will also be online. Is
On
that right,
SoundCloud
John?
on the 88.7 KIGC SoundCloud link.
Correct.
Um,
But that was my biggest, if that's the biggest point I have right off the bat. I have tons of other stuff that I can break down into from there, but the biggest thing for me was that, and this is kind of also the best thing about the movie, was that when Godzilla was on screen, I absolutely loved it.
It was fantastic.
It was wonderful. He was just, and there was times where it just cut away from it, and I was disappointed. Like,
Okay.
I don't care about
And
what
I want to kind of
Yeah,
go
go
on
ahead.
that, and the fact that yes, I agree with you full-heartedly. Yes, Godzilla was not on that enough, and the fact that I'm going to go in a little bit of nerd logic back in the times, like yes, you can say the old films kind of had that, where you'd have points of Godzilla on the film, and then he's like coming in and fighting, and then they go to like people and stuff. But what this movie did completely wrong from that is they made teases that didn't pay off. Like as in like the scene where they're in the airport and you see Godzilla for the first full time and he roars. I'm like, yes, fight scene. Nothing goes to the kid, and then you see it on TV and I'm like, I was very upset. This is what I thought. I was like, that is lame. That's very lame.
Now,
Yes.
for me, I actually thought that was one of the coolest parts of the movie. Now, hear me out.
Sure.
Don't jump at me, John. And for me, as I watched it, yes, I was disappointed by those moments where you see the doors closing and Godzilla
Oh
just
my
comes
gosh.
out, and you're like, oh man. But for me, what I thought was really neat is how it almost felt like they were framing it from the perspective of like the people, like what it would be
Yeah.
like seeing Godzilla actually there.
That's
as
how they
opposed
made the
to, like,
movie to
this-
be.
And I don't
Yeah.
disagree. I thought the Gareth Edwards, the director, was fantastic at setting up and building the tension.
I agree. Yeah.
He just never came out. It never paid off. was
See,
the
I don't
problem.
know. I felt like
Exactly.
that's what
I
it
was the
worked
same
towards.
way.
All those teases, you
Yeah.
teased him, you saw him occasionally throughout.
work.
But then the ending, I thought that made it all worth it for me. That was all the payoff. I was
Oh.
like, yes,
And
this
like
was worth it.
there are
Agreed.
key scenes in
It
that
was just-
ending that just
I don't know.
made me just oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Too
and-
long
Like
of
foam
a
at the
payoff.
mouth,
for
it was
me.
so
Okay,
amazing.
maybe it
Because
was a bit
at
long,
the-
but I
Go
don't
ahead.
know. I don't know. I just thought that was a a bold way to do it. So it would have been easy, I think,
It's
to
true.
just have Godzilla rampaging the whole time. But I feel like
I think it had
it's-
more to do with budget concerns than
Okay.
anything. But
Well, okay. Well,
that's
I thought-
I don't know that. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, well, either way, I thought that was an interesting way to do it. And I thought, for me, it kind of kept me engaged and wanting
Okay.
to keep waiting to see
Yeah.
the
That
finale,
makes sense.
which paid off for me, in my book. I don't
And
know.
I did like the setup. I thought for the first hour of the movie, when they they kept setting it up, at one point I stopped and said, "I'm kind of on the edge of my seat here. Like this director's really building the tension." But then at the point that I looked at my watch, and it's like an hour and a half in, and we're still getting that setup. Like, here comes Godzilla. We're following it with all the boats. Like every
see a
destroyer
spiny
we have
tail.
is following it. Oh, there's a spiny tail, and cut back to this character story that I absolutely did not care about.
No.
But before we dive in too deep here, let's jump over to Eddie,
Okay.
coming from no background in Godzilla at all.
Yeah.
Like, what were your thoughts?
Like I said before, I liked it. When I watch a movie, I don't really overanalyze it too much. It's just, can I sit and watch it for 2 hours? And
Can I make it?
This one actually did keep me enthralled. I didn't mind the human element as much. I liked the fight scenes between
Yes.
between Godzilla and the other
And the
creatures.
super
Mutos.
roach?
Yeah.
No,
But it,
Oh, the Muto, sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Muto.
It's
The
parrot
Muto.
spider and parrot mantis.
Every
Oh,
time I
parrot
see
spider
like
and
Academy
parrot
Award
mantis.
nominated actor David Strathern saying Mutos, I just cringed inside a little. Classic, brilliant actor. Oh my gosh.
So, but like I said, I mean, to me, it was just an action film, and it kind of, I'm sitting there watching it, and it almost had a if you're looking at the creatures, Godzilla and the Mutos, it almost had a love triangle feel to it, just a little bit. Like
Yes.
you picture Godzilla as the scorned lover type situation.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, just just a different angle.
This movie easily could have been another genre.
Yes,
if
it
you
could
could
have.
just rewrote a few scenes, Eddie.
Could have
and
been monster
so-
romance.
Yes,
been.
there's a new genre for you.
Oh my
Monster
goodness.
romance.
What if
Monster-
Nicholas
Oh.
Sparks has written that movie?
Oh my
That could be a
goodness.
segment right
You gotta
there.
be kidding me.
I mean, if we start from the beginning of this movie, I thought the first 20 minutes, I don't know how much spoiler we want to get into here about how involved a certain character is in the movie, but
Just go on. Who cares? They should have tuned out by now.
You had ample warning.
We had ample warning, exactly.
Once more, spoiler alert.
Bryan Cranston's character, is heavily in the opening scenes of the movie, and although he's dealing with some of the worst dialogue put to the screen so far this summer, he is able to kind of handle it, just being such a wonderful actor. And
Oh,
I think-
yes.
Amazing.
I think I speak for everybody when I say we haven't got enough of him after Breaking Bad.
No.
And to see him on screen in a big budget movie was fantastic. And I really thought he did well. There was some chunky dialogue. He worked his way through it, and he may have been a little over the top, like he was constantly in some kind of emotional peril.
Yeah.
But I didn't really
I
care.
dropped my sandwich.
I
It's gonna take us back to the Stone Age.
But there's like a really interesting movie in the first 20 minutes. It may have been the first 10 minutes even.
And then they destroy it.
And then they go to a completely different story. Starts after the opener that I just didn't care about. I really wanted
Yeah.
to see more about that first story. I wanted to see more about them dealing with the loss of another character and the father-son relationship, and then we just get dumped onto Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, who 15 years jumps all of a sudden in the first 10 years, which always kind of, I don't know, I just never really think that's done well. It's definitely not done well here. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, remember all that emotional, like super heavy emotional weight we just dumped on you in the first 10 minutes? Erase it. It's gone. Here's a new character. He's got a family. Care about this. And I just never even cared about any of his storyline. I mean, I don't know. Eddie, from your background, I mean, what did you think about the Aaron Taylor Johnson, or just the storyline in general?
Again, I mean, when I was watching the movie, I really didn't get into the storyline all that much, but
What'd you get
It's-
into? Because there was only 10 minutes of monsters. I mean, that was my problem. Is
Eddie
we
was
spent so
digging
much
on that
time with this
popcorn.
terrible
Man.
story.
Nick's digging hard.
Hey, Nick, I'm
Throwing
with you,
bombs,
actually,
guys.
so.
I guess I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you. I did.
I stumped you.
Sorry, yeah, you did. I did
throw him a bone.
I did like
Throw him a monster.
when the son, the grown-up son, did take the little boy under his wing during one of the main fight scenes of Godzilla. Well, whatever. I'm not saying that it wasn't. I liked the fact that he was able to give that boy the
it's fair enough.
The protector. Yes,
the protection that he never received from his father.
See, you caught me off guard with that one. I really now you say that, I didn't really mind that one there. I thought they kind of wrapped it up with nothing at the end of it, unfortunately.
Hey,
but
look, there's his parrots.
That was one of the very few. That was one of many times in this film when a kid is just shoehorned into the movie to make the peril even more heightened, to add stakes. That wasn't terrible. I don't know, Jordan. What did you think
about kids being shoehorned into the movie?
Well, did you notice that, or just in storyline in general? I noticed an
excessive amount of kids being shoehorned in, but no, I agree with you a little bit. It was pretty intense, I would say, in the first. What was it, 10 minutes probably? We're thinking 10 minutes. I would have probably liked to seen more of that, even just from the trailers, Bryan Cranston involvement. I would have liked to seen more of that and kind of his angle with, the cover-up conspiracy, trying to figure out what's going on. Because I feel like that kind of just got resolved real quick, too, is kind of what I found real interesting. So I would have liked to see more of that, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I was into Aaron Taylor. I love Aaron Taylor Johnson as an actor. I think he's great. So I was captivated in that sense. But yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna head to a commercial. We'll come right back when we keep on discussing our in-depth review of Godzilla right here on 8.7 KIGC with the Quadcast right here in the kitchen. And we're back right here on the Quadcast. So we're continuing our discussion of Godzilla and. We kind of got on the subject of talking about, I think, mainly Bryan Cranston's character and how there is a lack of his character in the film. But, Nick, you said you wanted to bring up something that we kind of discussed before. You want to just bring that right back up?
Well, we talked a little bit. I had mentioned how the movie keeps shoehorning in these kids into these kids in peril to kind of raise the stakes before every action sequence begins. And Jordan had mentioned how he didn't notice it, so now I'm going to continue to ruin the film for you and point out each time. But
perspective.
Well, I mean, just right off the bat, you got the kids at the school when the nuclear meltdown's happening, which was a little more integral to the story. But then you start to get the kid that just accidentally gets left on the subway train, and then there's actually a kid on the beach in Hawaii that's watching Godzilla come up, and hers was the worst because we actually see her running down the street from a huge tsunami that's just massacring people. Yet her and her family run into a building and somehow get saved by glass windows.
As well as the dog.
As well as the dog. So it's like every time we follow one of these, it's okay, we're going to massacre everybody else on the street, but this little girl you've been following from the beach, she makes it. She's okay. And to me, these are just kind of cheap techniques.
I can't believe you talked about the awesome scene, but yet it was still that when Godzilla was finally raising out of the ocean.
No, all I was noticing is like we're really going to shove another kid into this that's in peril and then quickly write them out.
Scene, to me, that scene was forgivable just because we saw Godzilla finally.
That was.
These aren't huge complaints for me. I thought there was better ways. If they had just endeared us to some of these characters, we already would have had stakes in them living through these situations.
Did no one not notice how there are a lot of key scenes that remind you of Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
As in the opening scene, the helicopter. I'm like, welcome to Jurassic Park.
I like the bus driver that cleaned off his window?
Yes, I was like,
oh, that is perfect Jurassic Park right there.
So is. You have the kids in peril the entire time. And there's one key scene I can't remember that was in there that I was like, well, there's Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but those kids were...
they really were in trouble is what you're saying,
well,
right?
No. They were part of the story. They were main characters. These are just kids that all of a sudden are thrown into the movie just to get a cheap raise of stakes out of the audience. Like, oh my God, here's a kid. Here comes a tsunami. Is she going to make it? Like, now you're invested. And it's like, I thought for a minute they were going to actually have some integrity, and and she was going to die with the rest of the people on the street, and really raise the stakes. Like,
jeez, Nick, holy cow!
For me, that would have been like, okay, well, anybody's game now if they're going to be that brutal,
Right?
And instead, they have this really, really cheesy way that she gets out of it, where she runs into a building with glass front, and the water just fills up, and the glass saves her. Or something, I guess. Really super strong, glass.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm just gonna go back on something that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of a pet peeve of mine, just because how Godzilla's normally portrayed is how he's in the original 1954 one. He's this, he's like a common, just like he's like a natural disaster. So he's like a hurricane or something attacking. Technically he's like a nuclear bomb, right? How they portrayed him in the movie is he's the good guy, and I'm like, I kind of really wanted him to really not to be so much the good guy, as in like. He's fighting these monsters like he's the common good force that like restores balance. I'm like, that's a load of crap, because I'm like, Godzilla's really like, I'm just gonna destroy stuff because I can.
Yeah.
And there's somehow the monsters get involved. But one scene, this is from like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from like 1990, like 1 or 2, and like one of the key scenes in there that shows what Godzilla truly is how like this one Japanese soldier was saved by Godzillasaurus, who later turns into Godzilla from the radiation from the Americans, right? And then he has this love for Godzilla, how like, oh, he saved me and all this stuff. And then there's a key scene when King Ghidorah is destroying the city, and Godzilla finally is like walking around, and he's looking out the window, and Godzilla's looking at him in this window in the skyscraper, and like there's this like heartfelt music coming in, like, oh, like finally he gets to meet his savior. And then Godzilla opens his mouth and blows him to bits with his atomic breath. And I was like rooting, like, this has got like, yes, it was fantastic, because I'm like, thank you, like
hilarious.
it shows he's not like a, I tried to have Nick watch it. Yeah, he has no feelings. He's an animal. Like,
Yeah.
And they made this movie, like the scene where Aaron Taylor, whatever his name is like sitting there, and he looks back, and Godzilla, after the building fell on him, he's like looking at him, and they like share this intimate moment together. I'm like, whatever. Like, he would have blown him to bits. Like, that's.
I don't think they really. I thought to me it was almost silly at the end when they're like playing it on the news channel that like Godzilla saved us, and everybody's chilling.
That drove
It's
me
like,
so nuts. I'm like,
Godzilla just massacred
that
millions
was-
of people.
could you like take off the savior of the city and just say King of the Monsters? That would have been so much better. But they put
Yeah.
savior of the city.
that-
I'm like,
yeah, that
really?
was my
savior of
thing.
the city? But it's like, well, the movie does, in the movie's defense, it does set up Godzilla as it does this like it's nature's course. There's a sub theme of nature is nature's going to take its course, and this is what Godzilla's purpose in nature is, which kind of goes against the randomness of of Mother Nature and the idea of that, but that his specific purpose is as a foil to keep these other creatures in check, and that is set up early on. So I understood why he didn't just after killing the monsters say, well, I'm going to destroy the rest of the city now too.
Well, Eddie, how did you feel about just like the fact that Godzilla is like a nature's course and not just some like random monster?
As I'm watching the movie, I really didn't, look into that. I did, like Nick said, it just seemed kind of funny at the end where it was, where it played him off as a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, it
it's
comes
like-
on that pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just,
Oh my gosh.
it's just all of a sudden.
Let's shy away from the fact that there's $4 billion worth of damage to our city.
Exactly. But hey, he saved us. He saved us from two loving
Super cockroaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much, exactly.
And that's kind of I kind of noticed this. I guess I compared a little bit to the remake of King Kong that Peter Jackson did. I don't know what opinions of that are here, but if you notice that and compare that to the original, in the original King Kong's kind of more just like a mindless savage monster, whereas in the new one, he kind of has some more emotion.
Yeah.
And you can kind of more get behind him. So I liked that I liked that in King Kong because I thought it made him a more interesting character. Now with Godzilla, I think it's kind of a harder thing
Yeah, I
to
think
do
it
because
worked
he's a
better
giant.
there.
Yeah,
He's
it
a
worked better there.
350-foot
Yeah.
lizard monster.
Whereas in this
But
one,
they
I
also
think,
spent more time setting it up.
yeah, I agree, and I think they were kind of trying to do that here.
No, they didn't.
But it's more time in King Kong.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, King Kong. I thought you were talking about
No,
Godzilla.
yeah, in King
Yeah.
Kong they spent more time
Oh, yeah,
setting him
Godzilla.
up
I thought you were
as
talking about Godzilla. Like, no, they
being
didn't.
more of a noble creature. I mean,
And I liked that, but I feel like in this one, it doesn't really work as well just because you have a giant monster who is destroying half your city. That was just my thing. I would have been fine at the end, but having him march off and go back into the water or whatever, and that's cool. But they have all the people are literally clapping and cheering. They're like, yeah. This giant lizard monster.
Yeah,
Go.
so they start cheering.
The perfect thing to top it off would have been if Godzilla turned around and gave a
Yeah,
thumbs
that's
up
what I was
to-
waiting for. I was waiting for him to turn around and like
then-
wink,
Gosh.
like whenever you need me, I'll be here, and like
Yeah.
dive
Have him
into
put
the
out
water.
his phone, his phone card. Like, here you go.
Yeah,
Call
that's
me.
what I was waiting for. So I really could have done without the cheering and the Godzilla savior of our city ? Headline at
A
the
little
end.
too
It's
on the
like-
nose for you.
It was a little too much.
Could
for
you
me.
imagine the Godzilla merchandise that they sold after they cleaned
Oh
the city
my
up?
goodness,
Be
our
on every
hero.
corner.
Godzilla, our hero. So
I heart Godzilla.
yeah.
Well, I feel like I've kind of maybe taken this whole thing in a negative turn.
Yeah, I was
John,
ready to
can
say,
you,
like-
can you talk a little bit about like what did you? I know
Oh
you
my
liked the
gosh.
film. I mean, everybody here
You
said
wanna
they
know-
liked it.
you
Let's
wanna know
talk
what I
about,
loved?
Yeah,
Number-
what did you guys really think worked?
Number one, and this is something that Godzilla pulled off better than Spider-Man 2, is the fact that in Spider-Man 2, this is spoiler.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2
Amazing
or
Spider-Man
But
2.
I'm going to leave
Spoiler.
the room because I haven't seen it yet. So
Cover
I'll be
your
back.
ears. You gotta stay here.
Well, you have to spoil that movie too.
Yeah, I'm gonna spoil. I don't care.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Love you. Anyways, it doesn't matter. They talked about how Rhino's in the movie. All right, and they even showed it in the trailer, so you know he's in the movie. So really, it's not a spoiler for you.
Right.
But the only spoiler thing is like he comes in like 2 minutes towards the end of the movie, and that's all you see of him. And that made me so upset because I'm like, you just set up a iconic Spider-Man character for like 2 seconds of a movie that you're like, oh, okay, we're gonna have him. No,
In Spider-Man, the Rhino shows up in the last 2 minutes. Of
Last 2
Spider-Man
minutes,
2,
yes.
Right?
Well, pretty much everything you saw him in was in the trailers.
Yeah.
Is pretty much.
But
right.
here's the thing that Godzilla did. Now the big controversy with Godzilla '98 is number one, he looked like a chicken lizard. Okay, and then number two, he didn't have his iconic atomic breath. Okay, and that drove me nuts. In this movie, I read up and I was looking up like, is he gonna have his atomic breath? They said yes. I'm like, okay. I didn't see anything in trailers, and it waited towards the end of the movie, and it was so. It was like butter. I mean, it was so good. I was just right when I saw it. I saw it 3 times. You can judge me if you want. And the third time I was still
we
like,
will.
And the third time I was still like, you saw that blue. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then he just pulled back and just like blew his like freaking atomic breath on this thing, and I was like, yeah! And then I was freaking out. Like people in the theater were probably like, this kid's nuts. Like there's something wrong with him. And I just, it worked so well because I'm like, they didn't spoil it. They didn't really announce that there was gonna happen, and this happened, and I just was like giddy as a little kid. And the fact that his finisher move was just like, because when the whole part in the end,
That
when
was
he was
pretty awesome.
when the whole point in the end when it's like, okay, like he found him, like I thought they were gonna do the King Kong. I'm like, really? He's gonna do the King Kong and then he just break his jaw and that's it. When he pulled open, just so like bam right in there, took his head off. I was like, I like stood up and clapped in the theater, and I was like, thank you, like Gareth Edwards, you helped me reconcile what was '98 and made my childhood so much better. That was probably like my biggest amazing thing of that whole film when I was just like I'm still shaking about it right now.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Joe.
What did you think, Jordan?
No,
about-
I think it's a statement of how well that works. 'Cause I'm even not a huge Godzilla guy, and when I saw that in the movie, the atomic
knew.
breath
You
going
just-
on, I was like, dang.
You just
this
knew
is-
because like
this is
that's
awesome.
that's every Godzilla movie you watch, you're just like, where's you know what's gonna happen because like I said in the Godzilla vs King Ghidorah where the guy's like wrote sentimental music and then he blows them to bits with his atomic breath. I'm just like, yes, thank you, like thank you. This is Godzilla. And when they brought that in the movie, I was just, oh my gosh, I was spent. It was fantastic. Anybody else, like who else? Like Nick, what'd you think of that?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. You had kind of set me up for it. Otherwise, I would have had no clue what atomic breath was, or
okay.
that it was even a thing in Godzilla. But you
Well, I
had
told
talked
you-
about it so much leading up to it. When it happened, I was like, "Oh, there's John's atomic
Is that the
breath."
first thing came to like John?
Yes, as soon as it happened, I was like, "Oh, that's what John's talking about," and I did like it. And you had shown me a clip from one of the earlier versions of Godzilla, like I don't know, 5 years ago or something, where that you just talked about, where Godzilla came out and like shot his atomic breath at the Godzilla from 1998.
Yeah.
And blew him backwards into a stadium, and he just exploded. So
Yes.
it
It was
kind of just, I thought
fantastic.
that was a pretty hilarious nod back to a film that apparently nobody liked. I thought was a better Godzilla film than this film.
Oh
but
my gosh.
we can.
Oh,
That's a whole
man.
nother podcast, I think.
Yes.
Ooh.
But I did like the atomic breath as well.
Oh yeah. Eddie, since
I'm
yes.
gonna sound like a broken record, but when I saw that, of course, not having seen a Godzilla movie prior to this one. I was like, what is that?
Uh-huh.
That is cool. I like that.
That was like
yeah.
a cherry, just like right on the top of the ice cream. You're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
The
So
nougaty center.
yeah, not only was this my first Godzilla movie, but it was also my first movie in 3D, and Nick can attest
Oh
to how
my gosh,
we
the
were watching
previews came on
The
and he went
previews, and I'm like,
nuts.
oh. What was it? How to Train Your Dragon or something like that. I'm watching it in 3D, and I turned to my wife and I said, I am never watching another movie in 2D again.
I was watching. He turns to me. He's like, "Is this what 3D is?"
I was kind of disappointed though that they didn't have the red and blue glasses.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
man.
Yeah,
Well,
that's disappointing.
I think the last thing I saw in 3D was Three Stooges Halloween special back in
Oh,
1987 or
geez.
something.
Well, Eddie, what did you think of the design of Godzilla the character?
You know, I didn't think it was too bad. I'm not watching a lot of monster movies, but I thought it was as feasible as a
Well,
giant.
you represent the everyman
Yeah.
viewer for us
Yeah.
on this show, I think. So
I'm trying at least.
And John's your opposite. He's the guy that knows everything Godzilla. So to me, it is interesting to know what your thoughts are of like what that creature looks like. Did it work for you?
It's as realistic as a fictitious giant Godzilla, lizard-like creature could be.
It's better than a guy in a suit, I'll tell you
exactly. I mean,
I don't know. I'll argue that in a minute.
So, yes, I want to hear.
no, but like I said, it looked good, and the mutos, as Nick calls them, the space cockroaches.
Space roaches.
Did I say it right,
roaches.
or whatever they are?
that. Roaches.
The giant roaches. They were kind of neat too. So,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Jordan, what were your thoughts on the design of
You're
Godzilla?
waiting for me last because I'm going to like rip into it.
Yeah, no, I thought.
I don't even know what you're going
Oh,
to think
geez.
of it.
I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, I thought it worked. I mean, as a guy, I am familiar with the chicken lizard Godzilla look.
Right.
I
With the Leno chin.
Yes, with the Leno chin.
I thought he was
Yes,
more.
yeah.
He was more of a T-Rex
Yeah, I
than
agree.
a Godzilla. But so
Wait, who was the
the '98
okay,
version.
yeah,
98,
chicken
yeah.
lizard?
See,
yeah.
I saw it in theaters when I was in high school, and I
Okay.
thought it was an entertaining movie, and I had no idea. It wasn't until later that I heard people saying, "Well, it doesn't even look like him," and it's like, "Oh, well, that makes
Okay.
sense."
Yeah. So I mean, I'm familiar with the look of the traditional Godzilla, and both he and the chicken lizard, and I kind of like, at least from what I saw, it looked like this one was more in line with the original look of Godzilla, and with the atomic breath thing, kind of looked like they were trying more to align.
That's so good.
That's
I'm
the
sorry,
good
I'm
side.
still
Yeah.
like,
atomic breath.
still like
Yeah.
salivating over that
Going back to
atomic
the
breath. It was
atomic breath.
fantastic.
So I enjoyed the design. I mean, I thought it looked cool. It worked for me, I guess. So
Nick, let's go to you before I
Curious to hear
start
what
talking
Nick
about
has
Okay,
to say.
well, what I thought was funny about this was he shows up, and to me, it looked like they spent $100 million making a digital creature that looked just like a guy in a suit. It looked like a guy in a suit. They just spent a whole bunch of money to make it CGI. I don't understand. So, but I guess that that's what the creature's always been, was a man in a suit, and
And
was
that's what
big
the fans
complaint.
wanted.
That's what they wanted. I did like it though.
That's
Don't
what
get
I
me
wanted.
wrong. I like fakey creature stuff anyway, and I think it's awesome. To me, I kept thinking, how much money did they
$200 million
spend
for a guy in a suit? Serious?
to make a creature that looks just like a guy in a suit? To me, you could have just made the guy in the suit, but.
Well, I have my here's the thing, granted it looked like a guy in a suit, but I was happy just because it looked like Godzilla. I do have some things I wish they would have changed.
Yeah.
Number one, the spines on his back were not big enough. I mean, yes, people can be like, "Oh, geez, John, get over it." I'm like, no,
This is where the nerd out happens.
exactly.
So
I'm like,
is he supposed to look like a Stegosaurus?
He's supposed to have he's supposed to have these huge spines that come out of his back. I'll show you a clip when we're done. He's supposed to have these big spines come out of his back, and that's where there's times where you see him you don't see his spines, you barely see him. And then there's times where you do. And then also his feet didn't look right. They look like elephant feet. They didn't look like how his normal feet would look,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But overall, I mean, I still enjoyed it. And the thing that was cool about it was, if you look at Godzilla through the time, he always had these key renditions of the way his face looked. Like from the 1954 when he looked like a dinosaur, and then from the 80s when he looked like he looked like a dinosaur would stupid one. Okay.
stupid
Just stupid one. I was
Thank
gonna
you
say
for
something.
fleshing that out.
Yes,
for us.
you're welcome. Well, I didn't want to say
Very
it 'cause I-
eloquent. Your
stupid
I don't know if I could
dinosaur
say
face.
it. And then
Dumb
the cool,
head.
my favorite one, which was in the 90s, he had this feline cat look on his face, which I was like, he looked cool. And then this
Feline
one,
All right,
if you look,
I gotta get online and look at this.
okay, look at him,
cat.
and
I
if
wanna
you,
see
and in this
Catzilla.
one, he looks more like a bear. You know, like the big thing they called in there was Goji Bear, which was like Gojira Bear. And he looked like a bear, so I was like, well, I mean, that looks kind of cool to me.
Right.
Yeah, look it up. Look up Godzilla 90, like Godzilla 18. Oh, sorry, Godzilla 1992, and you'll look like a cat.
What can you wrap us up here on?
Well,
John?
you know, here's the thing. Like, and I'll talk about the sequel, but first off, I want to talk about this. I loved it because of this reason: is the fact that this is the first time we Americans have finally got a Godzilla movie right in some way, shape, or form. Yes, it may have had kind of a lame storyline, but we still got the look of Godzilla and just the presence of Godzilla right. You know, we're not looking at a Chickenosaurus or, you know, that can't do anything at all and that gets killed by two rockets, killed by two missiles. When you have finally the king of monsters getting hit with everything, and he's like, forget you guys, I'm just going to destroy everything. And then he wakes up and like walks into the ocean and be like, peace, you know. The thing...
I'll send you a bill.
I'll send you a bill. Yeah. And then one of the things, too, how they really announced the sequel already, which was a little surprising because how Gareth Edwards talked is that this movie was a standalone movie. I kind of think he was just saying that just to so it was.
He had to have been. I've never once thought this was going to be a standalone movie.
Oh, no way. But the thing is, what I'm happy now is happy and yet concerned because Gareth Edwards talked about how he wanted to use the same kind of formula for the next movie for this one. I'm like, please don't. Like, I want more monsters. And also what's nice is I think now the fact that the whole storyline is why we didn't see any of the original Toho monsters like Rodan or Ghidra or Godira, whatever his name is Ghidra. That's how I call him. Or like any of the other ones is because Toho was so upset with the 98 one. They're like, we don't want to give you anything anymore. And the fact that like, we're going to take Godzilla and make something out of it. You know, they did, and they made something pretty good. And that will hopefully we'll see like, you know, Godzilla's arch and nemesis, which is Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon, and possibly Rodan and other things. That makes me excited in the fact that they may do a Monster Island plot.
Yeah, see, I heard that. I heard
makes it even.
I thought I heard
it makes me.
That.
It kind of makes me happy, but at the same time, I really want it to be executed better and the pacing better, as well as no more teases that don't pay off. Where you see, we see Godzilla. Never mind. Okay, you know, I want Godzilla to be in the movie more than 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think the fact that it got greenlit so fast, I mean, is obviously that it had a huge opening weekend and has made, you know, somewhere around 200 million worldwide in a couple of days.
So
I think
it's
that's going to
phenomenal for a
lead
movie
to
that a caliber as well.
Yeah, I think this is going to fix the problems I have with the film, which is just not enough Godzilla. With the budget they're going to get for the sequel, there's going to be a lot more Godzilla, I think. To me, I think it's just a budget issue, not really as much of a scripting issue.
Exactly. And like final thought, just for me is I love the film. Would I go see it again? Yes, but only in IMAX. Like I've seen it enough.
For the fourth time?
For the fourth time. I've seen it enough in the small theater, and I want to see it. I want to see Godzilla in his full glory, and I want to feel like him stomping on my face. Okay, and you know, and it's just it's a good movie, and the fact that we finally got a Godzilla done right makes me even more happy in the fact that. Every time Godzilla was on screen, no matter how short it was, I was still giddy as a little kid as I was when I was 6 years old watching the originals with the old man in a suit on like AMC and stuff. You know, that's our thoughts on Godzilla, and we're going to go on a break, but we'll come right back and we'll do some more segments right here on the Quadcast right on 8.7 KIGC The Kitchen.